Yo, what's going on? Shalom, shalom. What's going on, everybody? What's going on? Shalom. Been a long time, long time. It's been a long time. Um, been a long time since I did since I did a Bible study live. But I feel the need to go ahead and do one. I don't know when the next time I'm gonna come on and do a Bible study live, but I'm getting on now to do a Bible study live. Because I think it's important for some things that we need to look at. I'm gonna deal with something that has really been really old. It's rehashed. It's re-brought back up again, and so in the day and age in which we live, and so I want to look at something really quick that has a shalom, everybody. What's going on? Grace, peace, and many blessings to you all. Shalom. Again, like I said, I haven't been on in a while. And there's no telling when I'm going to be on again. But I want to deal with this particular lesson and look at something that was brought up recently. And nowadays, because I have so much stuff going on with the congregation and things like that, I really just don't have time to really get on like I used to and just really do a lot of lives. And, I was going hard every day and stuff like that. So really didn't have the opportunity, the time to really get on and do a lot of lives because of so much stuff going on with our congregation, and just really trying to stay focused with that, really tend to the people and really pour into them and stuff like that to really bring some clarity and understanding. And so oftentimes lately I've just been dealing with particular passages and lessons that our congregation just need a lot of clarity on. And only time I kind of deal with them is when they ask me. If a lot of them begin to ask and it becomes of importance, then, I get into it depending on how the subject and what we're dealing with. If it's of something that requires having to go into the Greek or the Hebrew or something like that, to really just look at it, to just present the information with clarity and look at things historically, then I do that. And generally it's in a PowerPoint form. Many of you know that before I was pastoring a congregation, I was doing a lot of evangelistic work, a lot of apologetic work and things like that. And so that part of me is still there when it comes down to dealing with certain teachings and certain doctrines. And so today, there's a particular passage, again, that's not new. It's kind of rehashed and re-brought back up again because in the day and age in which we live, you guys already know there's a lot of trying to, create different apologetics for those who are identifying as Israelites and things like that. And so there's a constant, conversation of trying to combat doctrine and things like that. And the thing is, man, I mean, it's not just so much of one who's identifying as an Israelite, but at the same time, it's cultural things that I think that's very important, that you have to understand. If people really understood the culture of it and accepted the Bible as culture and what's going on within the text and how the Torah is the culture of Israel, then there wouldn't be any feuding. And I can get into other things of why there's a lot of war, but I'm not going to do that. I just want to really look at something to bring it to your attention. It can be a stumbling block for a lot of people because it's written in the English translation. And so I want to bring clarity to it. There's a particular passage in Mark chapter 7, verse 19, that is stated, and it's only found in Mark. It's only found in Mark chapter number 7 and verse 19. Mark 7 and 19, there's a particular passage of dealing with the same thing that was dealing with in Matthew 15. But in this particular passage, there's a a statement that is placed in parentheses after 19 or on verse 19 that states that he declared all meats clean, meaning that he declared that all the meats that were once forbidden, according to the interpretation of many who are now teaching that or pushing that, that he declared verse 19 was the declaration that Jesus or Christ or Hamashiach was saying that all of the meats that were forbidden to eat in the old covenant was now clean to eat during his time. Mind you, they're still under the covenant, the old covenant, when he's making this statement, because he had not yet died. He had not yet risen. He had not yet shed his blood. So in order to do that, in order to present a new covenant, there has to be the shedding of blood. So there's a passage in verse 19 in Mark, and it's generally found in many of the translations, such as the most modern, like the NIV. You may find it, it's definitely predominant in NIV. You may find it in the Good News translation. You may find it in, I think, the ESV, the CSB, most of your modern news translations, where it says that he declared all meats clean, meaning that he declared that. Now, and when you start to look into the ancient Greek manuscripts, as far as like the Codex Sinaiticus or other manuscripts, you're not going to find the statement of he declared. That's not going to be in the state. That's not in the original Greek or in the original language. You're not going to find he declared in that particular where many are translating that from. So if it's not found he declared in the older manuscripts, then that means that was injected there by later translators, many who were probably not of Hebraic culture or any understanding of that nature. So when this particular passage, when this question came up, I was like, wow. I posted in our group, in our church text group, and I was like, yo, check this out. Check this particular verse out. What do y'all think about this? And it's easy to be, of course, they understand the culture. They understand what's going on in the culture. But for someone who reads that and looks at that and it says that, it can be you can get tripped up and it can catch you off guard. And so especially one who is identifying as an Israelite, who is keeping the culture, because again, during this day and age, this is a dialogue and conversation in Mark chapter number 7. And I'm going to read it real quick so you can look at it. I'm going to read it in a couple of different translations. I have a couple of different books. I have a KJV here. I have the 1611 here. I have the contemporary English version here. And so I have that. I have just 3 of them. I got about 8 different translations, but I only just pulled a couple because I'm not going to read it all. And then I went and pulled one of my old reliables. This particular book was given to me by my mother many years ago. This is, you see how thick this thing is? This is a Matthew Henry, okay? This is the first commentary by Zondervan that I had gotten, my mother had given to me. And I thank her for that. This is like the first book that I had gotten many, many years ago. And this thing has a lot of wisdom, a lot of jewels in this Matthew Henry. All right. So I went and pulled that just to be able to, hey, Pop, what's going on? Can't wait to see you, man. We're going to be getting together here at Convocation pretty soon, in about 2 weeks in Orlando. So can't wait to see you again. So we want to look at this. Of course, I'm here. I don't have my laptop. I really wanted to go, and later on, I'll probably pull it up. I wanted to go into the Codex Sinaiticus and really pull it out so you can look at it and see it in the Greek. And They have the Greek manuscript on there, and you can see it within the Greek language and in the English translation, which translates it directly from the Greek. And you're not going to see he declared in there, okay? But you'll see it in some of these more recent contemporaries. So I'm going to read the CEV, the Contemporary English Version, okay? I'm going to read Mark 7:19, and let's see what it says here. I've already read it, but I'm going to read it for y'all. Okay, it says right here in verse number 19, Mark 7, it says, it doesn't go into your heart, but into your stomach, and then out of your body. Okay, by saying this, Jesus meant, listen to this. I want you to listen to different terminologies here and how they translate this in the different translations. Jesus meant that all foods were fit to eat. Okay, stop right there. All right, so we're just reading this here, just so you can get an understanding here real quick. So I'm going to read this out of the 1611. See what it says. Okay, let's see here. Mark 7:19. Because it enters not into his heart, but into his belly, and goeth out into the draught, purging all meats. Now I want you to see this. This is a thing that's very important. I want y'all to understand. Okay, and I know you can't see this, but in Mark 7:19 in this contemporary version, which you probably won't be able to see it because the words are backwards because the way I got the camera. Just look up the CEV. Okay, there's a period at the end where he says he meant all foods were fit to eat. There's a period there. Okay. In the 1611, which is much older than the CEV, there's a question mark at the end of Yeshua's statement. There's a question mark at the end of Hamashiach's statement. In the CEV, there's a period. In the 1611, there's a question mark. Okay? That's another translation. In the King James, okay, so let's go into King James. And let's go to Mark. All right, Mark 7:19. All right. Let's see what it reads. Because it enters not into his heart, but into his belly, into the belly, and goeth out into the draught, purging all meats. Question mark. Again, there's a question mark there. That's very important. Again, when you go into the Codex Sinaiticus and other Greek translations, you're not going to find the word declared there, which is very important. Okay. Also, the question mark is very important from a period. All right. Just the same way it's very important to understand that there's parentheses, all right, within the statement, and there aren't parentheses. Okay. So that's a very important thing that I want y'all to look at. All right. Now, here's the important thing that I want you to check out about this. It's only found there in Mark 7:19. That's the only place you find that in the four Gospels. Okay. Why is that very important? So let's start off with looking at context. Okay. Now, I'm not going to read it. You guys have probably heard this before, but you can go and read it in your time. I'm trying to keep this live short. The conversation starts out between the Pharisees and Christ. Okay. The conversation starts out about traditions. Okay. And then culture or the laws of God or Yah. The Pharisees come to Yeshua and says, why do your disciples not keep the traditions of our elders? Why don't they wash their hands before they eat? Okay, this is very important to know. Why don't they wash their hands before they eat? Bringing an indictment against the disciples who are walking with the master teacher. Okay, so they come to him with this question, and then he rebuttals back and says, why do you violate the commandments of God by your man-made traditions. So this conversation of back and forth is dealing with what's more pure. Are you more righteous? Because this was something that the Pharisees held dear to them, because people were really superstitious when it came back then. Well, can you be sinful if you eat when unwashed hands, and sin in the dirt? I mean, we don't know. I mean, during that time, they didn't have any type of doctor equipment to be able to look at and see if any germs in the dirt, or if you rub up against somebody or shake somebody's hand. I mean, all this type of stuff. They were really superstitious. And I don't want to use the term superstitious, but they were really careful because they were more worried about, okay, I don't know if you've been kicking it or talking to some Gentiles or what. You need to wash your hands to make sure before you dealing with something. I don't want you to mistaken and touch my bread, all right? And by mistake, and whatever you're infected with that is sinful, I might eat it and I may become sinful. This is the type of stuff that was going on during that time when you understand the culture, okay? So the conversation that is being dealt with here is about, okay, are y'all washing hands? Why don't your people wash hands like our people wash hands, okay? So let's look at this really quick, all right? Because I want to make this really, really short. I want to go to Matthew. It's very important to understand the surrounding, because it's not as though the Gospels contradict themselves. I don't want y'all to get that, to come out of this with that particular mindset. The Gospels see together, okay? They see together. They aren't against one another when it comes down to the Gospels, okay? But the understanding of one who is reading must understand you cannot put American culture or whatever culture you reside in into this and just dismiss Hebraic culture in the way they dealt with things and how they dealt with each other. That's the most important part of understanding this. All right. Now, let's read this real quick. Go to Matthew. We're going to go to Matthew real quick. All right. I promise you I'm not going to be on here long. I'm trying to end this really quick. Okay. Let's deal with this. Okay. So we deal with Matthew, right? And when you get a chance, you can go check out the Codex Sinaiticus or other later Greek translations. All right. So Yeshua makes this statement. All right. And so he goes on, when you start reading verse 2, he starts calling them hypocrites and all this type of stuff, because you're trying to hold traditions over the laws of God and all of this type of stuff that was going on, all right, during that time. So let's begin to look down here. We're going to go down to verse number 14 of Matthew 15, because if you read Mark 7, Matthew 15, they pretty much kind of read the same, except when you get down to the later part of the verses. That's when you start dealing with what being about those injections of this being declared meats all clean, all that type of stuff. Now, mind you, these are Hebraic minded individuals, okay, that you have to account for. They are Hebraic. They aren't thinking like Gentiles. They are thinking based upon the law or based upon the traditions of those who added traditions to the law. Okay, that's their mindset. They aren't thinking about like Americans. They aren't thinking like French. They aren't thinking like Russians. They aren't thinking about any of that. They aren't thinking about thinking like Gentiles, period. Okay, so that's very important for us to understand when we're dealing with these particular passages or dealing with the Bible, period. Okay, dealing with the Bible, period. Even though this book is beneficial for those who are Israelites and non-Israelites, because we all have a responsibility to keep the kingdom culture. But then there's also, all right, cultural things that were handed and given to Israelites that weren't given to Gentiles. Okay, so they aren't thinking like Gentiles. They're thinking like Israelites. All right, so let's continue to read with this. All right, so let's go here. Let's deal with Matthew chapter number 15. And we're at verse number 14. It says, let them alone, all right? They be blind leaders, this is Yeshua talking, of the blind, and if the blind lead the blind, both shall fall in a ditch. Listen to this very carefully in verse number 15. Then answered Peter. I want y'all to listen to this because I'm going to go back. I'm going to come back to this. I'm going to go to another particular place in the book that's going to give you an understanding. Okay. Hey, what's going on, my brother, Elder Michael Holloway? Blessings to you, man. Grace to you. Listen to this. It says in verse 15, then answered Peter and said unto him, declare unto us this parable. Listen to this. I want y'all to stop. We're going to go to verse number 8. Let's go to verse number 8 really quick in Matthew 15. This people draweth nigh unto me with their mouth and honoreth me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. But in vain they do worship me, teaching doctrines, the commandments of men. Listen to this. His issue with them are you are teaching doctrines and commandments of men that the Most High never gave as a commandment. He never gave the washing of hands as a commandment to be righteous. So this conversation that Yeshua has an issue with them about is because they're trying to add and put man-made traditions. We know that the Torah is not a man-made thing because it was given to Moses, all right, by the Most High. All right, so it's not a man-made thing. It wasn't something that he came up with. The only time we see him saying anything that was man-made or anything that was added that was man-made was when it came down to the bill of divorce. When he said, for what did Moses gave you a bill of divorce? I didn't, because the Most High idea was never about divorce. It was always about a covenant and protecting the covenant. Okay, but the Pharisees, they started adding all kind of barriers to make sure to try to prevent the people from being sinful, to try to prevent the people or present Israel from going into other captivities, going to captivity again, because their mindset was, and if one want to say that they had maybe a good heart about it, like, well, okay, well, we got to add some more things to try to help the people from not sinning so we won't go back into captivity. But what doing that is you start adding other things and making it Torah or making it law versus saying, listen, this is our personal preference. This is what we feel. We feel as though that it's beneficial that you don't do this. But when you start saying that Most High has declared this, that's when it becomes a problem. Okay. But anyway, let's keep reading it. All right. But look what he says. In verse number 16, he says, and Jesus said, are ye yet without understanding? So Peter asked him this question. He said, listen, tell us this parable. Why? Because Peter, as an Israelite, understands that you can't just eat what you want to eat as an Israelite. Peter understands this. This is why Peter asked the question, like, can you declare to us this parable? Now, in Mark chapter number 7, I want to show you something real quick. Okay. It says right here, Mark 7, let me go ahead, let me find it real quick. 19, hold on. Oh, Mark 7 and 17. Now listen to this, Mark 7 and 17. I want y'all to check this out. After he talks about these things, about, what goes in and all that doesn't defile the man. Let's read Mark 7 and verse number 15. I'm going to read it. There is nothing from without a man that enters into him can defile him, but those things which come out of him, those are they that defile the man. If any man have ears to hear, let him hear. Now listen to this in verse number 17. And when he was entered into the house from the people, his disciples asked. Notice, in Mark 7, the statement is his disciples asked. It doesn't make it clear because the conversation or the clarity here isn't really so much focused in Mark's agenda to focus on actually who asked the question. But I'm pretty sure in Mark's understanding of this is that many of them was pondering upon what is he talking about. Can you please explain this? So from Mark's agenda, when it comes down to this gospel of Mark in the 4 gospels, Mark simply is saying that many of the disciples were pondering. In Matthew's agenda, Matthew's gospel says that it was Peter, more than likely was the one who would probably heard the murmuring amongst the brethren, but he was probably the most outspoken to ask the question when everybody else is just wondering and pondering. I ain't finna ask him. I'm not finna ask him that. I'm not finna ask him that. I'm not finna. But we got questions. We want to know, what is he talking about? Well, won't you ask? Man, I ain't asking. Won't you ask? Well, I ain't asking. Won't you ask? Everybody said, won't you ask? Everybody said, won't you ask? But yet Peter was probably the main one who said, listen, okay, I'll ask. I'll ask the question. So Matthew focuses on, again, they see together. They're synoptic. They see together. Okay. So it's not as though they're seeing differently or not in agreement with one another. It's just that the focus on different what's going on at the time and who's involved is more focused in that area on Matthew than so much it is in Mark. But it still brings the same clarity, okay, of understanding. But let's go back here. All right. I want to jump back to Matthew real quick. Look what it says here in verse number 18. All right, it says, verse number 17. Do not ye yet understand whatsoever entereth in at the mouth goeth into the belly, and it is cast out into the draught? Question mark. Henceforth, when you look back over in Mark, in other translations, declaring or making all meats clean, there's a question mark. All right. Now you find in the NIV and other places where there isn't a question mark, it's a period. But here in this particular passage of verse number 17, the question mark is there. Okay. In that particular question. All right. So let's go. Let's keep reading. Verse number 18. It says, but those things which proceedeth out of the mouth cometh forth from the heart. Because why? Because Hamashiach is trying to get you to understand that you are more defiled with the things that come out of your heart, that proceed out of your mouth, than anything that you eat without washing your hands, which is not anything in their culture. See, what people mess up is that in Hebraic culture, there are things that is listed as food and things that is listed as not being food. This is the major understanding that people are lacking when come down to dealing with this particular passage in Mark 7 and 19. It's not like American culture where everything that you see in the store is good to eat. You see everything in the store that they sell, everything that's considered meat is good to eat. In Hebraic culture, if you go right now to Israel right now, or if you go to Zimbabwe, where our Limba family's at, there are all kind of animals running around. But the Limbas, who are Levitical priests, they understand that everything isn't considered food. If you go to Israel today, even the Jewish people in their markets, everything isn't considered food. That's why they don't sell everything. But in American culture, everything, you go in Walmart, you go in Publix, you go in Kroger, you go in Winn-Dixie, everything in the meat section is considered food. But if you take that mindset and you apply it to the Bible, you're going to be in error, because the Bible isn't a Western mindset. You have to understand that the Bible is a Hebraic mindset. So they know what food is based upon what the Most High said and not what is placed on the shelves. Okay. Now when you go look at this, let's keep reading here. Okay. In Matthew chapter number 15 and verse number 19. Now listen, when he's going to tell you what defiles a man. Dirty hands and eating food with dirty hands does not defile a man. Okay. So let's read. For out of the heart proceedeth evil thoughts. Murderers, that's in Torah. Adulteries, that's in Torah. Fornicators, that's in Torah. Thefts, that's in Torah. False witnesses, that's in Torah. Blasphemies, that's in Torah. You know what's not in Torah? Washing your hands before you eat. That's not in Torah. And he's going to tell you right here in verse number 20 of Matthew 15. He says, these are the things which defile a man. But to eat with unwashed hands defiles no man. Listen to this. Notice here in Matthew 15, in verse number 20, there is no parentheses that says, thus he declared all meats clean. because you're not going to find that in the original Greek. You'll find that later on in some of these other translations that people added there. They put it in parentheses. You're not going to find that thus he declared in the Greek. Okay. Because that's very important to know. If he's declaring something, that means he's the walking word. So whatever you find in Torah, okay, that was given to Moses. He has to uphold that. Okay. Now let's go here. Let's read real quick. I want to go to Acts chapter number 10. And the reason why I'm going to Acts chapter number 10 is because of this. I'm going to show you why I'm going to Acts chapter number 10, which is why this is very important. That's going to tie into Matthew 5. All right. Acts chapter number 10 is going to fall into Matthew chapter number 15. I'm sorry. Okay. I want to look at this. Acts chapter number 10. Okay. And we're going to start at verse number 9. Acts 10 and 9. Let's look at this. Watch what it says. On the morrow, as they went on their journey and drew nigh unto the city, Peter went up upon the housetop to pray about the 6th hour. And he became very hungry and would have eaten, but while they made ready, he fell into a trance. Listen to this. And saw heaven open and a certain vessel descending unto him, as it had been a great sheet knit, at the four corners and let down to the earth, wherein were all manner of four-footed beasts. Listen to this. On the earth, and wild beasts and creeping things and fowls of the air. Watch. Verse 13. And there came a voice to him, Rise, Peter. The same Peter that was in Matthew 15, the same Peter that was in Mark chapter number 7. This is the same Peter. If Mark's gospel is saying, thus he declared all meats clean, then Peter wouldn't have rejected the meats that were unclean that came down in Acts chapter number 10. He wouldn't have rejected it because he would have been already taught in the understanding that this stuff is clean. All of it is good. All of it is clean, and because Hamashiach taught him and told him that. But yet he was the same Peter in Matthew 15, the same Peter with the other disciples in Mark 7, who asked the question to explain to us this parable, not statement, parable. Because they understood culturally that he cannot be talking about that because they're Israelites. All of them that's a part of the conversation, the Pharisees, the disciples, all of them have a thorough understanding of culture, what is food and what is not food. Because remember, there's no New Testament during the time of Peter. There's no New Testament at the time of Paul. There's no New Testament for any of that. Okay, the renewed covenant or the updated agreement came into effect once the blood was shed. All right, but they understand that point. So Peter here, watch what he says. It says right here in the vision, and there came a voice to him, Rise, Peter, kill and eat. But Peter said, Not so, Lord. Why is Peter saying not so? Why is the same Peter saying, I ain't eating that foolishness? I'm not eating that. He's going to tell you why. Right here, look what it says in verse 14. For I have never eaten anything that is common or unclean. This same Peter that was in Matthew 15 and in Mark 7 should have known if the original Greek said he declared all meats clean and good to eat and consumed, then this same Peter wouldn't have had no issue with eating. He wouldn't have kicked back and said, you know what? I ain't never eaten anything. Are you crazy? You think I'm finna partake into this? Look what it says. He says in verse number 15, and the voice spake unto him again the second time, what God hath cleansed, that call not thou common. Verse number 16, look what it says. This was done thrice, 3 times, because Peter refused to eat. Okay? It says, the vessel was received up again into heaven. Now, while Peter doubted in himself that this vision which he had been which he had seen should mean, behold, the men which were sent from Cornelius had made inquiry for Simon's house and stood before the gate. All right, now listen to this right here. Let's go over here real quick. All right, let's go over to verse number 30. Look what it said, verse number 30. And Cornelius said, 4 days ago I was fasting until this hour, and at the 9th hour I prayed in my house, and behold, a man stood before me in bright clothing, and said, Cornelius, thy prayer is heard, and thy alms are had in remembrance in the sight of God. Verse number 32. Send therefore Peter of Joppa, call hither Simon, whose surname is Peter. He lodgeth in a house in one Simon of Tanner by the seaside, who when he cometh shall speak unto thee. Okay, verse number 34. Then Peter opened his mouth and said, of a truth, I perceive that God is no respecter of persons. Okay, because the Most High will kill a Gentile just like he'll kill an Israelite. Okay, verse number 35. But in every nation he that feareth him, in every nation he that feareth him. Why? Because we see Cornelius is displaying a level of fear. That's why he's praying and fasting to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Okay, look what it says, verse 36. The word which God sent unto the children of Israel, preach peace by Jesus Christ, Yeshua HaMashiach. All right, verse number 37. That word I say ye know, which was published throughout all Judea and began from Galilee after the baptism which John preached. All right. So let's go down here. All right. I'm trying to find it real quick. Let's see here. All right. Let's keep reading here. Where we at? Verse number 38. All right. It says right here. Jump over here to verse number 27. Jump back to verse 27. All right, in Acts 10. And as he talked with him, it's Peter and Cornelius talking, he went in and found many that were come together. And he said, this is Peter, to them, ye know that it is unlawful thing for a man that is a Jew to keep company or come unto one another of another nation, but God hath showed him when? In the vision that we just read in verse 13 through 18. God showed me. That's why Peter said, I ain't never ate anything common or unclean. I ain't never ate, because Peter understands as an Israelite, there's certain things that is identified as food. Those that are identified as food is clean. Those things that is not identified as food is considered unclean. Okay? So listen to Peter's vision. Verse number 28. And he said unto me, ye know, let me jump back down. But God hath showed me that I should not call any man common or unclean. Why? Because the vision, that's what the vision was about. So if Peter understood this, that those things were good to eat and all these other things, everything was good to eat according to what the interpretation of many who say in Mark 7 and 19, then Peter wouldn't be bucking in Acts 10. It would be completely understood by the disciples that everything that once was unclean is now clean. But that's not the case. That's not the case. You think that if you put on a Western helmet, but if you put on a Hebraic helmet and look at the culture, and many people don't understand the Hebraic culture. We have this Bible. We say that this is the God of Abraham, Isaac. This is the God of all nations. And we read this stuff, and yet we don't even take into consideration that the Torah itself, living holy, is a culture. We don't take into consideration that all of these disciples are Hebrews who are teaching the masses, teaching the world. And yet we don't take into consideration when we read certain things that they are not going to violate certain things because it's a part of their culture. It's a part of the kingdom culture that was given to them to be an example to the world. And yet we seem to think that they are Americans. We seem to think that they're some other nation outside of being Israelites. It's just certain things they're not going to do. It's just certain things they're not going to do. So Mark 7 and 19 is not saying he declared all. Again, those who just not joining, if you go look in the later Greek manuscripts, you're not going to find he declared. You're not going to find that. So the thing is, in Matthew 15, the last verse tells you what he declares unclean. To eat without unwashed hands, because that's the context of the entire conversation between the Pharisees and Hamashiach. The conversation starts out clearly about washing hands. Now, jump over here to Leviticus. I'm going to show you what's not food and what's food to Israelite culture that the Most High gave to them. Okay? Because that's important to understand. All right, Leviticus chapter number 11. Okay. Leviticus chapter number 11. Now, I want y'all to pay attention to who's talking. Who's giving instructions. I want y'all to pay attention to who's talking, who's giving instructions, and who's going to take the instructions and distribute it. In Leviticus chapter number 11, okay? Leviticus chapter number 11. Okay, Pastor Demetrius, I'll get with you. Leviticus chapter number 11. Look at this. I want y'all to pay close attention to this, beloved. And the Lord spake unto Moses. So we see here that it's the Most High that is speaking to Moses. Moses ain't make this up. Moses didn't drop this. This thing didn't come out of, just pop out of imagination out of anywhere. And Moses didn't give it. The only idea that Moses had was about giving a bill of divorce because the men didn't treat the women of Israel right. They want to hold them hostage while taking on another woman. I'm going to stay away from that. I'm not going to get in that. That's a whole nother conversation. But that's the only time you see that the Most High says that Moses gave you something. And that was the bill of divorce. Now we look in here in Leviticus chapter 11, we see that it is the Most High who is speaking to Moses and Aaron, giving instructions to them because they were his mouthpiece. They were his mouthpiece to speak to Israel. No different than your moray and your path. See, some people seem to think that just because now we're in a time that a Mashiach is coming, that the Holy Spirit, the Ruach, is in you and no longer on you, we seem to have this mindset or taking on this mindset that you don't have to answer to nobody and that you don't get instructions from nobody, but yet you want to teach everybody, but you don't want nobody to hold you accountable. That ain't Bible. It's not Old Testament and it ain't New Testament. We can go from the old to the new and see the Most High speaking to people to give instructions to people. But y'all don't want to do that. And that's why you're wondering why you ain't advancing. You wonder why we're in the condition that we in. It's because somebody had a bright idea that they don't need to be under nobody. They don't need to listen to nobody. And yet the same people who declare this are the very people trying to teach other people what to do and what not to do. You can't hold that to, you can't declare one thing and yet try to practice another. It doesn't work like that. It don't work like that. I got a congregation. I have congregations and I also have someone I have to answer to. Or someone who holds me accountable. I ain't running around here like a renegade out of control or none of that, doing what I want to do and all this other stuff. No, I'm not doing that. I trust my leadership. The same way those who are part of our congregation trust me. And those who don't trust me, because you have people that's a part of your congregation that don't trust you. Okay, cool, that's fine. But when you get in a situation, don't come to me asking me to give you no wisdom or guidance on anything. That is fair. That is fair. But listen to this. Look what it says in Leviticus chapter number 11. And the Lord spake unto Moses and Aaron, saying unto them, speak unto the children of Israel, saying, these are the beasts which ye shall eat. Boom, beasts, meat. Meat. They knew what was food and what was not. So when you get to the New Testament, they still know what food is and what's not food. You know why? It's because this is all they had. All they had was the Torah and the Tanakh. All they had was the Torah and the prophets. That's all they had. They ain't had no Paul letters during those days. It wasn't canonized in no book or none of that stuff. And in fact, Paul wasn't writing to us in 2019. He was writing to the people of that day who was dealing with those issues. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't use Paul's letters in the day and age in which we live as inspiration, because they are inspired to bring wisdom and clarity to the people of that day, which also can help us in the day in which we live, because many of us are still dealing with those issues that those people dealt with in that day as well. So yet we can use that wisdom of that day to also help us in our day, but he wasn't thinking about us in his day. And as soon as we get that understood, we can interpret the Bible properly and get an understanding of what's going on in the new and the old. Okay? And I don't like to use those terms. I really don't like to use them. But for modern day understanding, we're going to use it. So Leviticus chapter number 11, it says, verse number 2, speaking to the children of Israel, saying, okay, these are the beasts which ye shall eat among all the beasts that are on the earth. Meat, this is the meat you're going to eat. Which means these are clean for you to eat, Israelites. So when the Pharisees come having this conversation in Matthew 15 and Mark 7, they ain't talking about is all meats good to eat? That's not the way it started out. If it was about meats, they would have started out saying, why do your disciples transgress the traditions of our elders by eating this type of meat? They would have said that, or eating this type of food. They would have said that. But no, they said, why don't they wash their hands before they eat? And then here comes Yeshua saying, why do you violate the commandments of Yah with your traditions? Notice, he didn't say anything about food. He didn't say anything about meat. He didn't say anything about bread. He didn't say any of that. He combated them with what they came to him about. You want to try me? Do you know I'm not the walking word? I understand the word. I the one gave it to Moses. So this ain't Moses' laws. Now that terminology is used as a distinction in the Bible, but that doesn't mean that he's the owner or the author of it. Do you not know who I the one gave Moses the law? And you gonna come to me talking about why my disciples ain't washing no hands? Did I put that? Have you not read? Remember, he would say that to the Pharisees all the time. Have you not read? You're supposed to be teachers of the law. You're supposed to be scholars. And you coming to me asking me questions about something you should already know. So that lets me know you coming to me with ill intentions trying to trip me up. Because you yet don't believe that I am the walking word. That's why you're willing to try me like that. You're willing to try me like that because you don't believe who I am. And I done showed you over and over, you can't step to me, bruh, when it comes down to dealing with the book. Because I am the book. Let's keep it reading. Look what it says. Verse number 3. Now he's going to give a description of what beasts to eat based off of recognizing how those beasts eat. Ooh, man, the Most High so fire. Oh, but he's so cold with it, man. He gives them he said, look, what you eat is, so you don't get confused, because some of these animals that I said that you can eat, some of them look like other animals. They have attributes and qualities of some of the other ones that you're not supposed to eat. But the difference is the animals that you're supposed to eat is only going to eat a certain kind of way, even though they may look like the other animal that I said is unclean, that's not good to eat. He said, look, they're going to eat this way. This is how you're going to know what you're supposed to eat. Because they're only going to eat a certain kind of way, a certain kind of thing that I've ordained for them to eat as a description, as an identifying marker of what is considered food for you. Let's read. Look what it says. Verse number 3. Whatsoever parteth the hoof and is cloven and cheweth the cud, among the beasts that ye shall eat. Look at that. Now later on, you're going to see within here, there's going to be other animals that have part and hoofs. But they don't chew the cud. But they have some descriptors based off of the terrain and the environment in which they live, which requires them to have parted hoofs. The same way with fish. There are fish in the sea, but all of them don't have scales. All of them don't swim at the bottom, but they're in the same environment. But they eat a certain kind of way, they move a certain kind of way, and have certain features about them which sets them apart from what's considered food and what's not food. Let's read. Look what it says. Verse number 4. Nevertheless, these shall ye eat, shall ye not eat. So here you are. These are the meats and the food that is not considered food. One is considered food, the other one is considered not food. Verse 4. These, it says, nevertheless, these shall ye not eat of them that chew the cud. So the one that chews the cud, you shall eat. All right. But this one also chews the cud, but you're not going to eat it. Check this out. Or of them that divideth the hoof, as the camel, because he cheweth the cud, but divideth not the hoof. Just because the camel chew the cud, just like the one I told you that does chew the cud, he ain't got the parted hoof though. So when you eat, you have to be particular and examine, okay, shoot, what this right here, it looked at, they in the same environment. Both of them chew the cud, but nah, bruh, his hoof ain't parted. Or nah, bruh, his hoof parted, but he don't chew the cud. So as Israelites, they had to listen with intent. They had to watch things. They had to pay attention, be at attention, very detailed. So you can't come around here talking about, oh, well, Hamashiach said all meats was clean. No, because Israelites understand culturally, you just can't be just an Israelite without being detailed in everything that you do. In everything that you say. That's why many who say they're Israelites aren't really Israelites. They might be Israelites by blood, but they're not Israelites by spirit. Why? Because they don't pay attention to what they say. They have loose lips. They just say all kinds of stuff. They say stuff and teach stuff that the Most High never said teach. So Israelites are very detailed. That's why Hamashiach would say, and the things that I hear the Father say, I speak. The things I see the Father do, I do. Why? Because we as Israelites aren't supposed to, we as believers, period. All right? If you say you follow this book and you accept the Creator, you can't sit around here and do what you want to do, live how you want to live, say what you want to say, treat people any kind of way. You can't do that. Even Moses, as much as the people got on his nerve, he still had to understand that this is the Most High people. But yet Moses got to the point where I'm done. I'm tired of these folks. I'm going to kill them. Moses had to leave. He had to take them up out of there. He had to get them up out of there. And Moses, nah, you coming home, bro. All right, let's read verse number 5. And the coney, because he cheweth the cud, but divideth not the hoof, he is unclean to you. And the hare, because he cheweth the cud, but divideth not the hoof, he is unclean to you. Look at that. And the swine, though he divide the hoof and be cloven footed, yet he cheweth not the cud, He is unclean to you. This is the same Peter. Peter saw all these unclean animals in Leviticus 11. And he said, I ain't never ate anything that is common or unclean. If Mark 7 and 19 and Matthew 15 was declaring that all meats were clean, then Peter would have known that and he wouldn't have bucked in Acts chapter number 10. Because even after that, Peter still never touched nothing unclean. He still never ate anything unclean. He still was keeping the culture of the Israelites. So that's why Peter asked the question in Matthew 15, explain to me this parable. What are you talking about, man? And in Acts chapter number 10, it happened 3 times because he still couldn't grasp it. What are you talking about? But it wasn't until after that he got the revelation and he tell Cornelius, for the Most High have shown me that I am not to call any man common or unclean. In both instances, in all 3 instances, Acts 10, Mark 7 and 19, Matthew 15, none of this has anything to do with food. None of it has anything to do with food. Okay, let's keep reading. Verse number 8. Of their flesh shall ye not eat, and their carcass shall ye not touch. They are unclean to you. All right, let's see here. All right, so let's jump over here to Deuteronomy, and we're going to end right there, and we're going to be out of here. All right, we're going to end right here and be out of here. All right, we're going to read, we're going to start Deuteronomy 14 and verse number 1. Deuteronomy 14 and 1. Let's see this. Ye are the children of the Lord your God. Ye should not cut yourselves, nor make any baldness between your eyes for the dead. See that? For the dead. Verse number. So cutting your hair and all that stuff and don't have nothing to do with you. It's against the Torah. What it's saying is you're not supposed to do it towards the dead. That's a whole nother conversation. We'll get that later. Verse number 2. For thou art an holy people unto the Lord thy God, and the Lord hath chosen thee to be a peculiar people unto himself, above all the nations that are upon the earth. Thou shalt not eat any abominable things. Why? Because he's already listed what was abominable. Verse number 4. These are the beasts which ye shall eat. He's reiterating again what you're supposed to eat. Mind you, all right, I want y'all to understand this, okay? This is what I want y'all to understand. These ain't just Israelites here. After the Exodus, it was a mixed multitude. Now I want y'all to chew on that. Because remember, the scripture teaches us that if there is one that is a stranger or a non-Israelite was following the ways that was given to the Israelite, he is also considered an Israelite. So guess what? When Moses is speaking these laws, he ain't just speaking to just Israelites. He's talking to even Gentiles too. Okay? He's talking to non-Israelites too, who also left Egypt. You're not just going to have no Gentiles hanging out with no Israelites just around here doing what they want to do, eat what they want to eat, living how they want to live, and doing all this other stuff amongst Israelites. It ain't happening. So all of them have to accept this as the guidelines that is given in order to, especially Gentile or non-Israelites, to be amongst Israel. They all have to accept this. All right, let's read. These are the beasts which ye shall eat, the ox, the sheep, and the goat, the hart, and the roebuck, and the fallow deer, and the wild goat, and the pygarg, and the wild ox, and the camos, and every beast that parteth the hoof, and cleaveth the cleft into two claws, and cheweth the cud among the beasts that ye shall eat. Nevertheless, these ye shall not eat of them that cheweth the cud, or of them that divideth the cloven hoof, as the camel and the hare and the coney, for they chew the cud, but divided not the hoof. Therefore they are unclean to you. And the swine, because it divideth the hoof, yet cheweth not the cud, it is unclean to you. Ye shall not eat of their flesh, nor touch their dead carcasses. These ye shall eat of all that are in the waters. All that have fins and scales shall ye eat, and whatsoever have not fins and scales ye shall not eat. It is unclean to you. All right, and you just keep reading all the way down. It tells you. He gives what is food and what is not food. So all I'm saying is, man, we have to be very careful when handling the word of God, man. We have to be very careful when handling his word. We have to go through this thing like a fine-tooth comb. Many of us need to go back to the beginning and get an understanding, because you have to understand something. He came to bring salvation. All right? He came to bring. He's not going to tell you, well, thank not that I come to destroy the law. I came to fulfill. And then we're taking fulfill and make fulfill mean abolish, destroy, no good, it's gone. Poof, we out of here. Nothing. Nothing else, no standard, it's gone. If I fulfill an order, that don't mean I destroyed it. If you order a shirt from me, I fulfilled that order. I completed that order and I shipped it to you. You didn't send it to me and I made it and then I burnt it. That's not what it means. That's not what fulfill means. This thing is simple. It's simple in understanding. It's simple. It's better to be obedient, man. So again, I tell all of you, Mark chapter number 7:19, for those of you who may not be clear about this, who have a clear understanding of what this lesson is, go do your research. Go check out, okay? Go check out the Codex Sinaiticus. Go check out other manuscripts. All right, you can even go check out some older Bible translations and check them out. You can even go and look at the Septuagint. Okay, go read the Septuagint. All right, don't just be bound. Don't just be settled with what you have now. Definitely go check it out, man, so you can get an understanding of really what's going on. And talk to someone who's in the culture. All right, a lot of times people are afraid to have conversations and talk to people. Listen, man, here's the thing. Here's what I want y'all to understand. Okay? Here's what I need y'all to understand. I ain't even get to the Matthew Henry. I ain't even worried about that. It's done. Okay? All right. Here's the thing that I need y'all to understand. All right, brother. B Bros, I got you, man. I got you. Here's the thing that I need y'all to understand. And I hope this helps some of you who are teaching, who are in Israel. It is not your job, nor do you have the authority to convert anybody. You don't. You don't have it. It is the Ruach. It is the Holy Spirit that has the authority of conversion. Has the authority of conversion. None of us can. See, both sides have an issue. Both sides have an issue of how do you teach and present. And the other side has an issue with how they receive. Oftentimes, how you present is the reaction of how that person is going to receive. Once you come into an understanding that you have no authority of conversion, of anybody. You didn't even convert yourself. You didn't even come into this understanding yourself. You didn't. You didn't come into this yourself. All right? Once you understand that the pressure is not on you when it comes to shaking the dust. When you become a master at shaking dust, it makes it easier for you to witness. Because you go to the witness table with it not being in your hands for the final say-so of the particular person you're dealing with. When you learn to go to the table, I can be around someone, and this is just me, all right? And we're all at different levels, okay? All right? Bree, I already dealt with that, man. Chicken unclean. I already dealt with that, man. I did a whole PowerPoint lesson on that. I don't have to be around to see someone that converted or someone coming to an understanding. Oftentimes, many have the Holy Spirit. It's just that many people, spirit man is immature in certain areas. And so an immature spirit man, all right, is weaker than a mature flesh man. And this is the reason why people find it difficult to be able to come into understanding some things. And oftentimes, like with maturity, it takes time. Many of us didn't become men until we was 40. It works that same way. Many of us didn't become mature men and women until a later age. Some of us became men and women at 21, 22. And some of us didn't become men and women until we were 40, 50. We didn't stop playing until that age. So when you come with that perspective, you can reach so many people. And here's the thing. Planting seed is reaching people. You don't have to be around to see the seed grow. But heaven knows. I think oftentimes many of us, we want to see this. We don't feel as though we're doing our job unless we actually see it. Heaven doesn't work that way. Sometimes heaven don't allow you to see the manifestation of someone you poured into. Sometimes you may not see it until after you get in a glorified body. I'm fine with planting seeds because I did my job. But I also have the opportunity to make disciples of somebody else's seed that was planted. That's another thing. There are people that will come to us in this day and age because somebody else planted the seed. And now the seed I'm just watering it. I'm fine with being a waterer or being a planter. It doesn't matter to me. I'm fine with either one. And I don't have to be around to see anything grow. I don't have to be. It's not required of me to. That was never in the commission for me to be around to see how much you grow. But I'm blessed if I have the opportunity to be in the process of your growth. I'm blessed with that. It's the same way I'm blessed to plant the seed and water it. I'm blessed to be around to see it evolve. So whichever way the Lord sees fits, that's fine with me. And I think once we get past it, that your mama who you keep talking to about this word and this truth and getting herself together and all this type of stuff, don't think that stuff going in one ear and going out the other. And what we just talked about today, as I get off here and close, some of your doctors that you go to some of your doctors tell you the same thing. It ain't good for you to eat. That pork you eat, that ain't good for you to eat. That shellfish, all that stuff. They will tell you some of the same things. That's not. But here's the thing: if a person ain't gonna listen to you, they're not gonna listen to the word of God. They ain't listening to the doctor. Hey man, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. At that point, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you, man. I just at this point, hey, maybe Satan can help you. I don't know. Maybe turning you over to him or something. I don't know. But I hope y'all was blessed, man. I'm gonna get off of here, man. I didn't want to be on that long. I haven't done a live in a long time, and I probably won't. I don't know, man. We have so much stuff going on. I'm blessed, man. This weekend we have a 2-day gathering, and on Saturday at our congregation, Prophet Frazier is going to be there, and then I'll be teaching at his congregation Sunday. So we have a 2-day gathering this weekend, and then I'll leave from his congregation and travel to Huntsville, Alabama, to be with my Restoring the Branches family down there, the Vonners. I'll be down there teaching at their Sukkot, and then come back, and then we getting ready for Sukkot in Jacksonville. And so we got a busy month. Then the week after that, I'll be in Orlando. We'll be at the convocation of Shabbat. And so this month is going to be real. It's definitely going to be tight and busy. And then November, the first weekend in November, we'll be in New York with the Balance Me, Only Love, Zion Lex, a few other Christian pastors. We're going to be having a dialogue, panel discussion about Hebraic culture and the Bible versus Western Christianity and culture. It's not a debate, but it's a reasoning, a conversation. We're going to be talking about the likes, basically we're going to talk about commonalities and differences and stuff like that. That's going to be free. That's going to be held at Bethel, Only Love's congregation assembly, where she attends her moray. Jonathan, he's going to be there on the panel as well. It's going to be a packed house, and we're going to be dealing with that, man. So it's going to be Christian and Israelites both in there. It's also going to bring a lot of clarity to a lot of people about, us as being Israelites and things like that. And we all don't have the same character and stuff like that. So it's going to be powerful, man. So this month in November, it's going to be very busy for us and whatnot. And so definitely, man, y'all be blessed, man. Y'all stay up, keep us in prayer, man. If anybody want to drop something in the Cash App, you can. Cash App, $It's Majors. That's $It's Majors. You can hit me up with that. That'll help us, whatnot. But blessings to you all, man, and shalom. I'm going to get off here, all right? Be blessed.